With that being said, our first speaker for this event is going to be our Senate sponsor, Senator Tiara Mack.
Hi everyone. I am really fortunate that I was reached out to by the coalition. Is that me? By the coalition to sponsor this important piece of legislation. As someone who has grown up with family members who have been in and out of the prison system, one of the scariest things is knowing you're not sure when the next letter is going to come. You're not sure what the conditions are like inside, only that they don't want to talk about it. One of the most heartbreaking things is to grow up seeing families and loved ones and knowing it's not just those particular families and loved ones. It is more Black, Brown, Latino family members of people all across this country who are disproportionately put into some of the worst conditions in prisons. And then exacerbating those extremely heartbreaking situations to be put into solitary confinement, oftentimes for much longer than anyone should ever be forced into social isolation. As someone who firmly believes in prison abolition, which is a scary and radical concept for some people, it is imperative that we start thinking about how we can create safe communities and safe societies that does not allow us to disappear people, real people, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, uncles, real tangible loved ones behind bars with no resources, no community supports, and putting them in places like this where they are expected to deteriorate right before our eyes. Prisons, like Angela Davis says, do not disappear people, they disappear problems. The people behind bars are people who have experienced some of the most, if not some of the worst, violences that our country has. The violence of forced poverty, of not having a living wage, the violence of not having safe communities, the violence of not having access to public transportation, the violence of not having access to health resources, the violence of not having a system that understands mental health as an important part of our healthcare services. That is the real violence that we are then subjugating more and more people to once they get behind bars. The goal of this bill is to make sure that we are seeing every single life, every single soul that is behind bars as someone who deserves not only restoration, but that deserves our compassion and to be seen as a real and tangible loved one of someone who has family. Throughout this campaign, I sent a letter to about 188 folks behind bars to get their stories of being in SEG, and they were heartbreaking and often hard to read. And one of the most repeated lines in the letters from folks who are currently experiencing solitary confinement is, "You won't believe what I'm going through." And the most heartbreaking thing is, all I could think about is, I can imagine exactly what you're going through, because I had to read 40 plus letters of people saying the same exact thing over and over and over again. It was heartbreaking, it was overwhelming, and it's so necessary that we listen and that we learn about different ways that we can make sure we're not only seeing people as autonomous outside of prison, and as we work towards a framework that values and envisions a place where we no longer have systems that hide people and hide problems. We are addressing them in radical and compassionate ways, because the most compassionate thing we can do for our folks behind bars is see them as people and fight for them while we are out here, as well as interrogating and dismantling the systems that currently exist. I'm really proud again to be a sponsor of this legislation, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Senator Mack.